Hi friends, welcome back to Codelligent and another video of our Python series. As you might be knowing, Python is an object-oriented programming language, and in any of the object-oriented programming, the most important topic is classes and objects. So let's see that in detail in this video. So let's get started. So first let's try to understand what are classes. So people who are coming from other object-oriented programming languages like C# or Java or C++, they might be already familiar with this. People who are new to programming, they need to understand that class is a kind of a wrapper. In simple terms, we can say it as a wrapper which contains variables and functions together. So that means the data and the functionality is wrapped together into one capsule, and that is called as a class. And a class can have multiple instances, and each instance is called as an object. And if you read online a lot of articles and all, everyone will be using a term called blueprint. So usually a class is considered to be a blueprint using which you can create a lot of objects. So you will see that in code how we create a class and why a class is required and all. But how we create a class in Python is using the keyword class. So you can see on the left side class some name, and inside that you can group the variables and functions together. And once this class is defined, then you can create as many number of objects you want. And how you create that is object name is equal to the class name with parenthesis. So you can create multiple number of objects from an existing class. So let's get into the code and see how we can do this. Now we are in our IDE, which is your code, and let's see how we can create a simple class. So for creating a class, first you have to use the keyword class and some name. Let me call it as some class. Now inside this you can create variables or functions. Let's see some variables. So I'll create some int is equal to 10 because it's of integer type, and I'll create one more like some string is equal to ABC. So these are the two variables which I have created inside my class. Now outside this class, anywhere I can create as many number of objects I want for this class. So I'll say obj1 is equal to some class and brackets. Now this is how you create an object. Now after creating an object, you can access the class properties through that object. So as of now in this class you have two variables and both has some value assigned to it. So now using this object you can access those values. How? You can say obj1 dot, and you can see some int and some string are available here, and you can access those values here. So before doing that, let's do a print and see what exactly is this object. So when I execute py class demo.py, you can see it is of type some class object. So that means this is an object type of this particular class which is named as some class. And if you want to check the type, usually in the previous videos also you have seen there is a method called type which is available in Python, and you can say object1. Here you will get the clear information. It says it's of type class named some class. So this is how you can check what is the type of this particular object. So now instead of printing an object, now let's try to access the data which is there inside the class. So now object1 dot, when I say maybe some string, and if I print this, you can access those value. I can create more objects from this. I can say object2 is equal to some class, and I can print obj2 dot some int, And when you execute this, you can see both the values are printed. Now you might be wondering why we need this. Can't we do this variable and keep it outside the class and access those values? The significance of this comes in when the thing starts becoming complicated. So when you have a wrapper, you want to save some data in that, you have to have some methods inside that or the functions inside that, and then every specific instance will have its own values. That is when the class starts playing a big role. Now you have hard-coded the values inside the class, and anytime you access any of the objects, you get always 10 and ABC. Whereas the specialty of this class is like you can create instances and you can have its own values for every object, which will be different from object to object. So let's see a simple example how you can do that. So let me clear this off and let's try to see some meaningful example. So first I'll create a class of type person. So the name of my class is person. And now I want to have some instance variables which can be assigned value from outside. For that, you don't have to define the classes here. You can simply create a type of method called constructor. So people who are coming from other programming languages, they might be knowing the term constructor, but the way we create a constructor in Python is slightly different than C++ or Java or C#. People who are coming from these programming languages, they know that a constructor can be created by using a method name which is same as the class name, but in Python it is slightly different. If you create a method with def __ init __ brackets, then this plays a role of a constructor, and there should be one mandatory parameter here. Usually we name it as self. Self is an object which refers to itself. So if people who are coming from other programming languages, they might be knowing the term called this, which we use. So whenever you want to access inside a class this dot, so it will give all the values which are present in that instance. Similar to that, we use here a word called self, but this is a variable, so you need not have the name as self itself. You can have anything, it can be ABC as well, but this first parameter is mandatory for init. Now apart from that, what values or instance variables I want, I can define that in the constructor itself. So now for person, I want to have a name, I want to have an age, maybe these two will be sufficient. And now what I'll do is I'll say self dot name is equal to this name, and when I say self dot age is equal to this age. So now you see there is a difference. You get these variables as the parameter for this particular constructor, whereas when I am using a self and saying name, so then it automatically creates a new variable for this particular class. So it is a class level variables. So I can create a name here also, a name and age, and I can refer them .self.name. But we don't have to do that. We can directly define a variable here and it will automatically create a variable by that at that instance. So now when you do this, and let me come out of this class, and now when I say object, so maybe I'll say person1 is equal to, I'll say person class, and now you can see it asks for two parameters. First is name, second is age. So I'll say John is the name and he is 30 years old, and person2 is equal to person, and Thomas is the name and he is 25 years old. So now you see we have created two instances of person class with two different type of values. Now anytime if you say print person1.name, and when you say print person2.name, and let me execute it and show it. So now you can see anytime you access them, both the objects has different values inside that. So this is the significance of having a class, wherein you can create multiple instances of this class and each object has its own values. So now in this scenario, we have a person class and you have different persons with their own names and age. So this is the use of a class. So now, till now we have seen only about the variables. So let's define some class methods as well. So let me create new method called def greetings. Let me make it as a small letter G. Okay, and inside this greetings, I will say print maybe a formatted string, and I'll say hello. Whenever you are creating a method and you want that method to be a instance method, that is like a class method, then similar to this, you need to have one parameter mandatory. We call it as self. You can create with whatever name you want, but usually we define it as self so that we know, okay, this is the mandatory parameter which we use here. That is a self parameter. So we can say self dot, and you see you have access to age, name. These are the variables which we have defined in the class level. So that is available through this variable. So I can say name, you are self dot age years old. So this is the method which I have created. Now anytime I create the instances, I can call person1 dot greetings and person2 dot greetings, and let's execute this, and you see here it gets printed. Okay, so you might notice here that apart from these lines there is some none which is getting printed. So any idea why that is happening? Because we did a slight mistake, because earlier we were just printing the values, but now we are calling a method which internally prints, and after that we are printing that method's return output also. So you can see here also we have a print, here also we have a print. So when you call this method, so whenever you say person1 dot greetings, it goes into this method and it does print this, but this method or this function doesn't return anything. It just returns a none, and again once it comes back, we again have a print statement, and this method, since it returns none, it prints none. So ideally when we are printing inside a method itself, then we don't have to keep a print outside. We can just call the methods. So in this case you should not be seeing the none, and you can see the proper output. So now you can see how each instance of the class has its own values stored inside that, and it has its own version of the function, and it takes care whenever you are referring to self dot those variables, it takes care that it gets the values specific to those instances. So when you were calling a greetings method inside person1, it knew what is the value stored in the name and age for that particular person1 object, and when you called person2 greetings, at that time it knew what was the values which were stored inside the person2 object variables. So now it becomes specific to those instances. So now imagine you are creating a very complex class, you have a lot of variables, you have a lot of functions inside that, and you can be sure that anything you access using an object, the values and the functions will be specific to that particular object. So now you can even modify the value of these objects. So for example, you are calling person1 dot greetings, person2 dot greetings, and then I want to say person1 dot, you have name and age here, so I want to update the age of person1 to maybe 40. Now after this, when I say person1 dot greetings, you will notice that this value gets stored inside the objects forever. So now when I execute it, now you can see it was 30, but now it is 40. So you have modified the age of this object at this line of code, and it remains in the memory of the object. And further down, whenever you are accessing that object, it retrieves that particular value itself. So this is how you can modify the variable values of the object also. And anytime you don't want this, you want to delete the object. So now you have created person1 and person2, and anytime you now think person2 is not required, so you have a keyword del which is already available in the Python. You can just say del and pass the object name. So with this, the person2 object will be deleted. So you will not get any confirmation for that. When you execute it, you don't see any confirmation that whether it is deleted or not, but internally it is deleted. So after this, if you try to access person2, and the IntelliSense itself is not providing you options, but even if you forcefully say something like person2.age, if you try to access, then you should be getting an exception. So now you see it says name person2 is not defined. So that means at this line of code, person2 instance has been deleted, and below this, the Python interpreter doesn't know anything called person2. So this is how you can create an object of a class, and you can delete the object of a class also. Now, similar to underscore underscore init, which is already defined method used usually for constructor, we have one more internal method which will be always useful. So that is called def underscore underscore str underscore underscore. So what this method does is you can define how you want to be shown as the object of the class to be shown whenever it is accessed directly. That means whenever, as of now, if I remove all these things, if I just say print of person1, so this is the object. So as of now, let me comment this so that I can execute and show it. So whenever I'm just printing directly the object, I'm not calling the method, I'm not calling any of the variables, I'm just printing the objects. And when you print this, you will see it prints like this: the type of the class, the object, and some random ID. So instead of that, you want something meaningful to be printed. Then in that case, you can override this method, which is underscore underscore str underscore underscore, and here you can say maybe return. You can use a formatted string and say self dot, oh, you have to use the self here, and self dot name equal to self dot age. So now you have written like this. Now you see the difference. Whenever you are just printing the object directly, you get to see this. So this is the underscore underscore str underscore underscore is a function which is available in Python, which you can override, and you can define whenever someone is directly printing my object of this class, what you want to show them. So you can take help of this method to show something meaningful whenever there is a printing of the object. Hope this gives a basic understanding what exactly is a class and how you can create a class and its related objects in Python. If you're liking our content, please do subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified for further videos. And in all the videos, in the description, you will find the link for the code files. Whatever code we are writing here, we are uploading that into the GitHub, and we are providing the link for that so that you can download them and easily execute them and access them, and you can play around with that. Thank you.